Because everything in life, everything in business comes down to positioning, right? It's what do I want people to remember about me and this business that we represent? And what am I doing to make sure that they're going to remember what I tell them and then hopefully repeat it to tell somebody else and build our reputation. If we're not focused on doing that, then all we're doing is answering questions or, filling out forms. That gets boring.
Let's get your engines started. Welcome to today's version of the Keynote Curators podcast. I'm Seth Dechtman, your Keynote Curator. Today's guest is the incomparable Ken Schmidt. Ken is a leadership and customer loyalty expert, but you may know him as the former Director of Communications for the Harley-Davidson Motor Company. This is a high-octane, high-rev conversation where we cover important ideas about branding and customer experience. Ken shares insights on how to be memorable and get your customers to be talking about what you do and who you are well beyond the service that they receive. It's a fascinating conversation. We appreciate you joining us. Tune in, you'll be smarter for it. Hello, and welcome to today's version of the Keynote Curators podcast. I am Seth Dechtman, your Keynote Curator and founder of the Keynote Curators. Our guest today is Ken Schmidt. Ken, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me, Seth. This is fun.
I didn't cue you up on the thank you. Yeah, it's going to be fun. Ken, you and I have worked together. I've been on site with you at client events. Before we get into it, most of our listeners and viewers are meeting professionals, the one that put these great events together that you and I both attend and that you speak at as a keynote speaker. Your history with one of the most iconic brands in North America, if not the world, planet Earth, if you will. There's a lot of language around the branding or the marketing of you, a premium fueled speaker, the world's highest revving business, even for those that are stuck in neutral. I just wanted, before, we take off and we depart on our journey together, what got you to this point of keynote speaking, your career path? What are you working on now that excites you? And so that we're informed about how we can best use you as a keynote speaker for our clients.
Well, thanks for asking, Seth. I will tell you, I feel very blessed and lucky that the most formative years of my professional corporate career were spent working with one of the most iconic, sexy, cool, memorable brands on the planet, that being Harley-Davidson Motor Company out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And the beauty of that for me personally is that, people might forget my name, which doesn't hurt my feelings one bit, but they always say they would remember the Harley guy. Aren't you the Harley guy? I saw a presentation done by the Harley guy, and, I get a tremendous kick out of that. And I will always kind of be indelibly linked to that brand. It opens a lot of doors, and it's helped me a lot in the speaking world because people want to and have a sincere interest in learning about how businesses that perform extraordinarily well learned how to do that, especially companies that made a lot of mistakes and faltered, as Harley-Davidson certainly did, long before it became absolute global dominator that it is now. And the most fun part of all about that is that if I'm talking about that and sharing what I learned and what I did and what we, collectively did at Harley to make that a global juggernaut, none of it comes from the realm of expectation. None of it is what people expect to hear, which has kind of been the beauty of it, the irony of it, and what, fortunately for me, keeps my phone ringing.
It's like this fortuitous timing, the stars align, you said, in your formative years of your career. What was the exact title? Corporate Communications Director? What was your precise title there?
My precise title was I was the Director of Communications. So I was
Director of Communications
for the shaping of the company's image to all of our discussions with media. I was also responsible for everything that we did with the financial community on the investor relations side. So I got to really play both sides of the coin, the money side and the go-to-market side. So you were talking about a great education and a great opportunity to use both sides of my brain.
And frankly, both sides of your brain, but both require creativity, whether you were dealing with the more nuts and bolts mundane aspects of the investor side and how to synthesize and communicate numbers and projections, but also, the trajectory from, correct me if I'm wrong, the ashes flying to the flying phoenix. Both required some level of creativity and a mastery in communication.
Tremendous creativity. What's interesting about that, Seth, is that a lot of other companies that I talk to or work with view this whole notion of working with the financial community or working with government agencies or big lenders or partners or investment banks as this totally different animal. And I said they're not a totally different animal. At the end of the day, they're people, right? So we approach them the same way we would customers, potential employees. If we appeal to their human side first, they're way more inclined to be interested in what we have to say, to stick around, to hear more, and to develop long-term relationships. So absolutely, to your point, Seth, that creativity needs to be front and center with everything, because everything in life, everything in business comes down to positioning, right? It's what do I want people to remember about me and this business that we represent? And what am I doing to make sure that they're going to remember what I tell them and then hopefully repeat it to tell somebody else and build our reputation. If we're not focused on doing that, then all we're doing is answering questions or, filling out forms. That gets boring.
Yeah, and being remembered and having a lasting relationship. I've even been in the world of social media and swiping and stopping the scroll. It's like, how do you be provocative and how, you worked communicating and creating the messaging of an iconic brand, Harley-Davidson, and all the skills that it took to be memorable. And in today's world where the mall is Amazon, the theater is Netflix, and, work is from home, the interaction, that texture of going into a floor, a showroom floor of a Harley showroom, if you will, or any retail space, has lost its texture, has lost that tactile sensibility. So the online experience has that much more value. I'm asking you, your observation in the world of communication, I'm calling it smartphone short. How do you stop the scroll? How do you become memorable? How do you get the swipe left or the up or the down or whichever way is going to have it be more than just this endorphin-induced flurry of likes and this viral peak moment that isn't sustained, right? So in your breadth of experience, how do you take that, get memorable, be memorable, and have that through line last as opposed to, oh my God, did you see that, on to the next thing? I don't know if there's a question in there or not. Does that communicate?
Oh, no, I'm tracking with that. I mean, the worst thing you can do as, an individual in a social media setting or somebody doing that for a business, the worst thing you can do is tell people things they've heard before or expect to hear or show people things that they've seen before. Why would anybody want to do that? Right? Why would you want to be confused with a billion other people? It's like I always tell business people, present yourself to the world the same way your competitors are. You're sending a very clear message that says we're just like them. And in what universe is that a good idea? Exact same thing in the social space. And what I see happening is, instead of businesses making these overt, obvious efforts to stand out, to be different, to present themselves in ways that people don't expect, are delightful, maybe include a little flash of wit, something that shows that creativity that the others aren't doing, is everyone is kind of moving backwards. Everyone's like, we need to just keep throwing stuff out there. We just need to constantly keep showing ourselves or what we're selling and what we're doing here. We need to constantly keep our product and our name in front of people. And that's not the way to do it. That's a wasted effort, I think 99% of the time, because then you're just blending in and feeding the scroll, feeding the churn. Is give people a reason to stop.
Right.
One of the things I always talk about, whether I'm talking to college kids, graduating seniors that are going out into the workplace, or people that are running super conglomerate businesses, is that any communication effort whatsoever, whatever it is, maybe it's you're answering a phone call from a potential client, maybe you're about to tweet something or present something, is everything has to answer to the two gods that start with the word R: remember and repeat. What do I want this person to remember and repeat? Because at the end of the day, if somebody doesn't remember what I just told them, what did I tell them? Nothing. Right. So, I mean, you're taking a call from a prospect or a client and all you're focused on is, must make the sale, right? Right? Must answer their question, get them off the phone, fix whatever problem that they have. That's not the mindset that you should have. The mindset should be, look, I want to elevate my reputation and the reputation of this business. I want to be memorable. I want to be story worthy and be talked about. So R&R, man, what do I want this person to remember and repeat? Put those two letters on your phone. So anytime that you're answering a call or making one, that's what's foremost in your mind.
Yeah, it's not the R&R that Hawkeye, was looking for in MASH.
No, certainly not what I was looking for in math.
Yeah, I mean, if I could now bring that idea forth to Harley,
Yeah.
I don't know if it destroyed its global brand. It lost an enormous piece of the market share in North America. The focus of the business, it just competitors basically came in. You can tell the story better than me, but as I understand it, they came in and stole Harley-Davidson's success. So, what's the lesson learned there? And if you can apply it somehow, Ken, to this post-pandemic rising out of a crisis, rising, a type of a turnaround situation. And, kind of on the heels of what you just said, there's a sea of sameness or copying versus being memorable, remarkable.
Even Seth, going back to the mid 80s, way back to the mid 80s, where your MASH reference was perfectly timely. As long ago as this was, the fundamental mistake that Harley Davidson made is the same mistake I see a million businesses making to this day. And that's this notion of we want the world to know and rejoice in what we do, right? So what Harley did, what we did, Harley, is we built, designed, engineered, manufactured, sold, serviced really, really great stuff, great product. And with a lot of pride and, with whatever money the company had, promoted and glorified that thing, the product. And what that does unwittingly is it feeds that churn machine, right? It commoditizes business because when you're glorifying your product, what you're doing is essentially urging the marketplace to compare your product to other companies' products. Right. And when you do a comparison of products in any industry, what you discover is, my God, everything being built is really good. Anything that's being sold today is really good. And the lesson that we learn the hardest way possible, right, which is tumbling into bankruptcy, is, man, it doesn't help us to be known for what we do, because that's not what attracts people. We need to be known for who we are as a business, as people within a business. Because every recollection, every thought that we ever have about a business is a mere reflection of the culture of that business. It speaks to who we are, right?
That's
when
a great
you talk,
distinction.
think about it this way, and I always share this with audiences, no matter what my speaking topic is that anytime you think about, remember anything about, or talk about a business, you always use the pronoun they, right? They're great. They have great service. They're huge, whatever it is, which speaks to, we're not talking about what they do. We're talking about who they are. We like them. I don't like them, right? It's the people, the passion, the energy, the enthusiasm, the personality of the business that either makes the business super competitive or, renders it a commodity. And we have way too many commodities, and it's getting worse, frankly, in the post-pandemic, everything going virtual, digital environment, because now let's just dump all of our effort into promoting what we have to sell online. And man, that I can tell you from an experience is a pathway to depression and great unhappiness. Don't do it.
Yeah, I've heard you make that distinction before, the doing versus the being. And it just strikes me, the simplicity, but the potency of it, and it's so true. In language, it lives. They are great. They are responsive. They are no nonsense. They are memorable. They take care of me. It's so simple. It's almost scary.
It's human. It speaks to emotion. I mean, hey, look, at the end of the day, no matter who we are, I mean, we're all people. We all have the same identical needs, right? We have our physiological needs, food and water and shelter, et cetera. But we also have our harder to attain emotional needs. And businesses that plug into that and say, look, what do human beings hunger for? Well, we hunger for validation. We hunger to feel noticed, right? Made to feel good about ourselves, part of something. And if we're doing that as a business for our employees, making them feel part of something big, giving them lots of emotional rewards and boost to their self-esteem and to their ego, it just stands to reason that they naturally, in turn, do the same thing for people that are important to the business, customers, lenders, vendors, people in the media, investors, whoever that is. And the more personable we are as a business, the more memorable, likable, attractive we are, right? All the things that human beings like and, pleasant, pleasurable, and worth seeking out.
Yeah, it's so true. So, meeting professionals have to distinguish their events in today's competitive marketplace more than ever. It's so important that they become memorable. It's so important that how the conference or the event or the meeting is positioned, it's going to not only attract attendees, sponsors, great speakers, great panelists. And in today's marketplace, it requires that creative thinking and occurring in your communication in a way that people understand who you are and how you occur for them. So you're responsive, you're service oriented, and you're there to serve their business initiatives. And that's why they're going to come to your meetings. So Ken, today in the events that as we come back from the pandemic, what are you seeing at meetings, knowing that we're speaking to meeting professionals that have called your attention, or something that you could see that's not working that could be working better as far as this same line of thinking on having a memorable experience and people understanding who you are?
Well, first, let me answer that by telling you what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing. Because I go to a lot of meetings, I always point this out to meeting planners on site. If we're in a room getting set up or ready and the attendees are out in the hall on break or getting ready to come in, I always say, listen, do you hear how loud that is out there? It wasn't loud like that 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when people were having meetings all the time. So what you're hearing out there, that's the sound of fired up people, right?
Yeah.
They're seeing people they haven't seen for a while. They're enjoying what that's happening. They're having great human experiences, great connectivity. They're laughing, they're talking louder, they're having a good time.
They're revved up. Come on, let's stay
They
with
are clearly revved up, to use the motorcycle lingo, Seth. But what's cool about that is I say, that should inspire everybody in an organization. If we say, look, folks are fired up, they're having a good time now, we got to keep that fire lit and we've got to make it hotter. And if we want to keep people engaged, do those things that they remember and repeat. What I would strongly recommend is that we move away from always doing what's expected, where we always have very, very similar agenda. We have the opening night reception that's followed by the meeting that starts the next day with speakers. I mean, those are the kind of bread and butter things that we have to do. But any opportunity within that agenda to create these opportunities for connectivity, for people to laugh and share this kind of human experience. So it's not just, business, business, business. We're incorporating some fun and some delight into that, but not doing it the way, we've always done it. What I think, I've said this for years, either before the pandemic or after, what I always call the death knell of a meeting is a panel discussion. I see nothing saps the blood out of a meeting room faster than people sitting on chairs on a stage, because there's no movement now. I mean, unless the topic is so incredibly scintillating. It's a panel discussion of A-list celebrities. It's really hard to keep people engaged. And I always see that as, okay, that's a space filler. And we had an hour to kill. Let's do a panel discussion. I would always dissuade against doing that, because we're here to delight people. Right? I mean, they're obviously going to be educated. They're obviously going to learn. But if we put the focus on delight, they're going to remember the event longer. They're going to want to come back next year. They're going to refer, talk their friends up. Hey, you need to go to this meeting next year. Next time it comes around, you don't want to miss this. Pal, I mean, those are all things that meeting planners have influence on. God knows they're the hardest working people on the planet as it is. So I offer that constructively, certainly not destructively, because I love them and what they do.
Yeah, they do wear every hat, the chief cook and the bottle washer, and, meeting professionals are dealing with so many different things. They could be dealing with security, registration, signage, ground transportation, food and beverage, the green room, accommodations, you name it, offsite excursions, spouse events, sound check. It's just unbelievable. And
hardest working people in business. And I've said that, 'cause I wore that hat at one point in my career. I know how hard it is and how, frequently underappreciated all that effort is. So the hardest working people in business, hands down.
Yeah, and you see it. I mean, I've seen during sound checks where they've had to be with the AV company to get a reading, and somebody will come in with a security issue or, a dietary issue or a COVID test was positive and we have to put some procedures in place. I mean, it really is. The range is just extraordinary. What?
Last to go to bed at night, first to get up in the morning. I always ask people at 7 a.m. or something in an AV check, what time did you get to bed last night? And they'll be, oh,
Yeah.
2, 3 o'clock, after
Yeah.
everybody else does. And you
Yeah.
have to tip your hat.
That's why, I work with you. It's so great because we know instinctively we're coming in and eliminating all the possible friction and just having it be as, just as smooth as possible. I want to continue on this whole idea about being memorable, expanding it beyond the meetings profession. What current brands are doing a great job in your mind of being memorable, communicating in a powerful way, having people repeat what it is that they're doing in their experience?
That's a great question, and I could go all day on this. But of really, big businesses, I think that John Deere, farm equipment, construction equipment, home lawn equipment, they do, I think, an exceptional job of
Yeah.
showing the world who they are, always localizing it, being extraordinarily personable. And obviously, it's a very famous brand, but they have not allowed themselves to fall into the commodity trap of blending in and becoming invisible. Another business that I have admired for years and will continue to admire and will always talk about is a company called Rick Steves Travel. And if you ever watch public TV, you probably know who Rick Steves is. He does European travel shows and has done them for years, but he runs a travel business where they do, guided backdoor tours throughout Europe that are extraordinarily well planned out, that are all done with the full involvement of the people who are, if you're taking the tour, they're going to, give you options every day. Would you prefer to do this or do you want to do this? And always getting feedback to make the experience better for more people. The pleasantness, you never see a lack of intense, visible passion from their people because that's the atmosphere that he has created as a leader and wants to permeate throughout that business. I think they do an extraordinary job. I advise anybody, look them up. If you're ever interested in travel, consider them and you'll see immediately that, hey, you know what? They don't do this the same way everybody else does, which is precisely the point.
Right. I mean, because you talk about that, I think you used the word advocacy, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I'm more like fans, I'm not on the SAT word level yet, I'm working towards it. But that fandom, that fanocracy, if you will, how important is that, for not only meeting planners, but others? Because the meeting planning space like John Deere or Steel Power Tools or, the travel industry is so commoditized, so competitive, so saturated. It's hard to tell the difference between Travelocity, Kayak, Trivago,
Is there a
on and
difference?
on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there is no doubt. A lot of them are actually kind of the same. So having that advocacy be fomented, what are some tips or some, what thoughts or views on that?
A couple of things. First of all, and I like to use this example because everybody gets it, is, hey, if what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, there's no Vegas. Nobody would go. I mean, this is the same with your business. You go out and you sell somebody what they came for, you provide some service. Well, if that person doesn't tell somebody else about it, it really means that nothing happened, right? They got what they expected and what they paid for. And that's kind of, business 101 now. Just sell our stuff and move on, which means that we as a business, again, if we're meeting planners, if we're people that have products to sell, and at the very beginning, the umbrella that covers everything that we're doing and thinking about should be, what do I want people to say about what we're going to do here? And get specific about it. What is the language I want people to use when they're talking about this event in their social media postings? Are there some specific words that we can weave into our vernacular that are immediately memorable and repeatable, that show that we made an effort to do it a little bit differently? People notice when things are different or presented in a different way or using language and terminology that maybe they didn't expect to hear. And man, that's precisely the point. If we're not doing it, we're just blending in and giving people what they expect. And that, again, that's not a good way to build rapport, to build loyalty, all these wonderful things that businesses want. We want people coming back. Well, what are we doing to get them to come back?
Right. And it's an inquiry that it's not easy. That's the challenge. That's why there is a sea of sameness, because it's a hard question to answer.
Well, the sea of sameness comes from, that's the easiest thing to do. The easiest thing to do is to tell people what they expect to hear. Here's our new product and here's what it does. Here's the new features of our product. Here's how we're going to back it up with great service. And that's all really good information. But unfortunately, it's not 99 times out of 100. It's indistinguishable from what competitors are doing or what's happening at other events or at other companies. It's incredibly non-memorable. It's not story-worthy, typically not delivered with any passion or warmth or wit or humanity. It all just blends in. What I advise anybody, whether they're a meeting planner, a one-person business, they're an investor, they run an investment business, they have an insurance agency, they build swimming pools, is to just look at the same 3 questions that I posted on my bulletin board at Harley-Davidson, every job I had before then and every place I've ever worked or consulted to afterward. Those 3 questions are, what are people saying about us or me? What do I want them to say? And what am I doing to get them to say it? Because if I'm focused on that, all the other stuff will take care of itself. Let's intentionally always be different. Let's make it a point in everything that we do and everything that we say to not match with what our competitors are doing or saying, and watch how that becomes kind of a contagious behavior within the business, and watch the rewards that we get because people will start to notice that and talk about us.
The contagious, that's the advocacy. I recall having been in person with you on site for speeches, and you show a certain manifestation of advocacy taken to the nth degree, the Harley-Davidson tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I can get the Keynote curators, customers, clients to tattoo my logo, then I've gone through the Ken Schmidt.
Well, it starts with you, Seth. You have to do it first.
You're right.
Let me tell you an interesting thing about those tattoos, though, since you did bring it up. Go all around the world, and people always comment on those tattoos, whether they like motorcycles or not, whether they like Harleys or not, no matter where they live. People have seen human beings with a corporate symbol permanently inked into their skin. That being Harley, they don't see it with other products. Kentucky Fried Chicken just hasn't caught up enough. What I love about that, though, is the learning opportunity that presents, because I always ask these folks is, when you see those tattoos, what do you suppose those Harley wearing or those tattoo wearing people are professing their loyalty to? And they always say what you're probably thinking right now, they're professing their loyalty to their motorcycle. And I say, no, that's the kind of thinking that bankrupted the business, that belief that we exist to promote, create, serve, and sell product. Product is what we do. And see, that's what hurt and killed our business. And that's also what we learned, to our great amazement. That's counter-human. Humans aren't loyal to things. We're loyal to the people behind the things, right? The culture of the business, all that visible passion and energy and enthusiasm and the things that make people and businesses likable. And once we learn that, we say, we got to go all in on that. We have to be the most visible, passionate, likable people in our industry. We'll talk product all day if you want to talk product, but first let's just elevate and glorify the humans around us and see how they react to that. And what they do is they react with delight. And that's the linchpin of everything, because 100% of human beings will seek out and return to anything in their life that delights them. And that's
right.
That's actually the definition of loyalty. We return to any source of delight. So when we lead with a delight mindset, right, say and do things for people that they appreciate, remember, in ways that delight them, we are miles ahead competitively of anybody else in our market space.
And it's easier said than done. It sounds so simple as you expound it out, but I love the synthesis. I always listen to these podcasts afterwards, and I'm going to be taking notes of what you said. It's great. I want to, make some noise. The Unconventional Road to Dominance, your book. I named that in the same question as, what are you working on today that's most exciting you?
Well, in addition to speaking, I, along with a business partner, run 2-day leadership clinics called Torque Sessions. Torque as in TORQUE, the force that pushes a body off the starting line and gives that feeling of acceleration. And what we do is we go in and work with businesses to reposition themselves in the marketplace, to focus on their culture, develop that delight mindset, and get people enthused about their businesses. And for it, and I say that coyly because it's amazing how many people have grown tired of what they do, have a lot of apathy for what they do, believe that they're just there as a business to hang on and do what they've always done. And once you see within leaders of a business a mindset shift to, hey, look, people are going to model my behavior. I might as well be delightful and energetic and visibly passionate because I know the people around me are going to model that behavior. Pow, just seeing those lights go off for people. Looking at, challenging them to describe their businesses differently, using words that people will remember. A great company like Harley-Davidson doesn't want you to know about their horsepower and their miles per gallon and their miles per hour and how much the vehicles weigh. They want you to know that Harley-Davidson is a lifestyle, right? This is about freedom and individuality and camaraderie.
How you feel.
And those are words that competitors don't use. So I can go anywhere in the world and talk about Harley. People say, oh, it's a lifestyle. And I say, thank you for saying that. So you noticed that word, you saw it as different, you remembered it, and you repeated it. Pow.
And I can imagine, Pow, when you're in those torque sessions, when there's that transformation or a recalibration of that branding or how to synthesize what it is they do, how it resonates with that source, with that company. It's just so obvious, but vivid. It must be that Pow moment.
And what's funny there is I will always ask, leadership teams of businesses, the top execs, the top brass, no matter what the size of the business is. And I say, if a customer or somebody important to your business, super important to your business, somebody that you talked to last week is talking with somebody this week that's extraordinarily important to you, a potential customer that you've always wanted, a member of Congress. This is an incredibly potent and powerful conversation. What would you want that person who knows you, that you just spent time with, to say about you and your business? And 100 times out of 100, people kind of lean back and say, well, I guess what I'd like to hear them say is, you guess. See, that's the problem, is you don't know what you want them to say. And if there's 10 leaders in the room here, all 10 people are going to have a different answer to that question. We can't do that anymore. We need to be consistent. We have to craft this positioning language that's going to be memorable and repeatable, and then live up to it.
Right. And then execute on it. That's right.
Yeah. Which is frankly, it's easier than it sounds. People think that fundamentally changing a business is difficult, and it is, but changing the language and the behavior of a business is much, much easier.
That must be really fulfilling to have that kind of impact and then see it last over time and, the expansion and the transformation. It's pretty cool.
It's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Now, do you have Usain Bolt come in as a guest on that torque? Because he certainly is a moving body off the starting line.
He's got a lot of torque. Well, I have to, when we came up with the name for, try to think, well, it has to be somewhat in the reign of, motorsports. So we do talk a lot about, getting off the starting line and getting in the passing lane and all that kind of wonderful, hopefully
pit
memorable
stop, refueling,
language.
Maintenance. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's very rich.
It works.
Ken, let's move into the 20 questions part. We're just going to fire away. Are you ready?
Hit me with it, Seth.
What's the most interesting thing about you that we wouldn't learn from reading your resume?
I love fishing.
What's your favorite book?
Oh, Friday Night Lights.
What are 3 things that bring you your smile to your face?
Family, friends, and any outdoor activity.
What skill you don't have that you'd like to have?
Foreign languages.
How many Harley-Davidson bikes do you own?
There are 5 in the garage.
What other bike other than Harley-Davidson do you or would you own?
First of all, I think they're all great, but I would go with BMW on that.
What's the coolest road trip you've ever taken on your Harley?
Oh, through the Alps of Switzerland and northern Italy. Not beatable. It's spectacular.
What's next on your travel bucket list?
Travel bucket list, I have one thing that I have never done that I've always really wanted to do, and that is ride a bike up the west coast of Norway as far as the roads go before it switches over to snow, and then get on a snowmobile and take it up to the North Pole.
Have beer on the boat. Is that really the trick to getting free consulting time with you? Because if so, I've got cases at my disposal.
As a lifelong fisherman and boater, I strongly have the opinion that there's not a problem in the world that can't be solved in a boat. because there's nobody else there. There's no distractions. It's just you. It's relaxing. You got a beer in your hand, beautiful scenery, good friends. Yeah, you can do anything. So, yep, give me a beer, put me on a boat. I'll help you do anything you need.
Anything is possible. Well, Ken, I think that that's a good point of departure to bid adieu for the moment. I always leave a little bit on the table from what I prepared for a revisitation down the road. Leave you wanting more, or leave me wanting more, or both. Just thank you so much for your thoughtfulness and the time that you spend and took out of your day to be with us. And I know our listeners will benefit from it. And, just really thank you.
Oh, thank you, Seth. I appreciate the time. This was a lot of fun. And the beer on the boat, I've never heard it said that way. That's going to stick with me for a while. So I appreciate that.
Thanks for spending time with us today. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe to our content. We'll keep bringing you the latest industry news and insights. Don't forget to follow us on social media so you never miss an update. And if you're looking for a keynote speaker for your next event, reach out to us directly or visit our website at thekeynotecurators.com.